Hey guys, ready to go fishing?
When was the last time you went fishing? Were you 6?
Guess it has been a long time.
Yeah, dude, it might be time to upgrade your rod.
I think you might be right about that one.
Hello, may I help you with anything today?
Yes, actually that'd be great. I just got a fishing license, but I haven't been fishing in several years, and I think it's time I trade this up.
Well, I know a thing or two about fishing. If you want to come with me, I'd be happy to show you a few things.
Awesome, thank you so much.
First of all, I'll show you the spinning rod and reel combos. There's two different types of spinning reels. One is an open face and one is a closed face. And basically you can tell the difference between those by looking at them. Here you see that has a closed face on it. You can't see the line there. And this one is the open face reel.
So which one is easier to use out of these two?
Well, I think for starting out, a lot of people find the closed face a little bit easier to use. But over time, with a little bit of practice, I think the open face is a better one. You can cast it a little further.
I want to get to that one.
Well,
So
I'll show you.
How do you cast them?
With this one, the closed face, see that button right there?
See it.
The way you would do it is you would hold that button down, and as you cast it, you would let that button go. So if you want to try that.
So I hold it.
That's
and
right.
let it go
And
as
then let
it-
it go.
Doesn't seem too bad.
No, it's a great rod and reel to start out with.
Okay. So then I get to this one after I've been doing this for a little while.
On the open face spinning reel, what you would do, if this had the line on it, you would open this,
Okay.
and then you would hold the line in your finger like that, and then you would let the line go as you cast it.
A little more advanced. I think I'll go with the closed face for just starting out. I like that one right now.
Okay.
What would happen if I forgot to close the bail on that one?
If you forgot to close the bail on this, basically your line would just be open. So if you're fishing and a fish were to take your bait, it would just keep running and it would take all your line out. So you would have a mess, basically. It's not too big of a problem, but you just want to close that, and then that allows you to reel the line.
I'm glad you told me that. I probably would have forgotten to close that. All right. Like I said, I think I'm going to stay with a closed face first.
Okay, great.
So would these same rods work at the beach? Because I see people fishing in the surf all the time when I'm there.
If you were going to be fishing at the beach or really any saltwater for that matter, you'd want to use something a little bigger, a little stronger, especially if you're looking at fishing for sharks, which is a popular pastime, or redfish or some other type of large saltwater fish. You want to go with a rod that's a little bit stronger, a little bit thicker, and the reel will also be a little bit larger. So here you see it's very similar to the other open face spinning reel that we were looking at,
Okay.
but it's going to be much larger. It has the same functions,
Same bail. Have to close the bail.
just a little bit bigger.
All right. So what is this one?
This one is a bait caster reel. It's similar in the closed face and how you push the button down. Here you would push the button down, but when you're casting, you would actually keep your thumb on the
Okay.
line, and you would sort of let your thumb up and reduce the tension a little bit as you cast the line. Although this is a popular rod and reel, I would not recommend it as a first-time rod and reel. Some people get frustrated because if you don't do this just right, your line will get into what's called a bird's nest and a backlash, and it gets pretty messy. But
We'll work up to that one eventually.
once you get the hang of it, a lot of people like these for the casting distance
Okay.
on them.
That's good to know.
So
Good to know.
And last but not least, we also have some fly rod and reel combos.
I've heard of that one several times.
Yes, these are popular for a lot of people in the upstate who are fishing for trout or fishing in cold water. It's a different kind of fishing. You'll lose a lot of flies when you first get started, but it's just another type of rod that you have to choose from. Where are you going fishing? Where are you planning on fishing?
I figured just some local lakes, maybe the state park. Nothing
Okay.
too crazy to start out.
Okay, so you'll probably want to look at this closed face spinning reel.
Seems like the one to go with. So is this all I'm gonna need to go fishing?
Well, now that you have the rod and reel picked out, let's go get a few other materials and I'll show you the rest of what you need to get
All
started.
right, let's do it. This all looks incredibly overwhelming. Where do we even start with this?
Well, I will show you a rig. It's probably the most common type of rig for live bait fishing.
Okay,
It's just called a basic bobber rig.
sounds easy enough.
And how we do that is
Can I hold
if you
something?
hold this,
Okay,
basically the first thing we do is we take a bobber. They come in all sorts of different colors and sizes.
okay,
I like to place it about 12 inches, foot and a half above the hook. And once you've done that, you'll want to take a couple of split shot.
what is a split shot?
Split shot weights that we have here is basically a weight that we'll just take some pliers and put it on the line between the bobber and the hook.
Okay,
And that just helps your bait get down a little bit in the water so it's not floating on the top.
why would I want that?
It'll keep your bait in place beneath the bobber and on the hook. And if you were fishing for something like catfish or bullhead or something like that, where those normally feed on the bottom, you would just take this bobber off. You would still leave the weight on where it is with the hook to help you cast that extra weight.
So can I add more than one? Or do you
can
just use one?
you can add as many as you really need for the situation.
How do you know how many you need?
It depends on say if there was some wind, a lot of wind, you might need an extra weight on there to cast into the wind.
That makes sense.
Or maybe if your weight of your bait was too light,
Okay,
you would need that. And I'll show you some examples here of the bait that we would use.
okay.
So here we have some worms,
All right, my favorite.
and what you would do is just take this worm, and put it on the hook here, and
Alright.
you would cast your line out as I showed you earlier.
So how do I know what size hook to use for that? Do I use the same size for all of this stuff?
Well, that's a good question. The size hook that you'll use really depends on the type of fish that you're trying to catch.
Okay.
So the smaller the fish, something like a brim or a panfish, you'll want to use a smaller hook. This is a size 6 hook,
Okay.
which would be fine for a type of fish like that, a brim or a sunfish. If you were going for something larger, like a bass or a catfish, you'd want to use a little bit bigger hook. And here you see that's a size 2,
Wow.
so it's a good bit larger than the other one.
All right. So if I wanted to go for the South Carolina state record of largemouth bass, which one of these would I use?
You'd want to use the larger one.
So do I use the same kind of string for all these same hooks?
Much like the hooks, the size really depends on the type of fish that you're targeting. With the type of fishing that you're going to be doing, 8-pound test is really fine. But if you were going for something larger, like a really big bass or something like that, you'd want to use a heavier pound test, like a 20-pound test or something like that.
So if I was going to break the South Carolina state record for largemouth bass, I'd use a 20-pound test?
That would be the better choice.
I'll remember that one. So I see the pros using this kind of stuff on TV all the time, and that live bait really grossed me out. So what are my options here?
Well, when it comes to artificial lures, your possibilities are really limitless.
Okay.
A lot of it depends on where you're fishing and what you're going to be fishing for. So for example, earlier, if you didn't want to use a real worm, you could use an artificial worm.
Like artificial worms.
And other examples would be like a frog,
Okay.
or something like you even get as wild as ducks and rats. Really what you're looking for is something that's going to be mimicking the type of bait, live bait that you would normally use, either through sound or motion or something like that.
I didn't realize that the motion of the bait would affect the fish. It's good to know.
That's great.
All right, I think these will work for me.
This is actually a spinning bait.
What
And
would I
so,
catch with this?
Earlier when we were looking at that bait caster reel, these are popular artificial lures to use with those types of reels. You see that a lot of the bass tournaments and those anglers using them. This is designed so that when it swims through the water, these will flash and create motion to mimic a live fish.
All right, I think I might want one of those.
Great. I've gathered some other things here that I'd like you to look at. What were you thinking of wearing when you go out on the water?
I was kind of thinking what I've got on: jeans, sandals, comfy shirt.
Well, here I've gathered a few choices which may be better for when you go out on the water.
Okay.
Some of these hook shirts, for example, are quick dry, and they're also SPF protection. They offer SPF protection from the sun.
That's important.
So you want to look at some shirts that are breathable, lightweight, protect you from the sun. If you get some splash on you or get wet from fishing, they'll dry quickly. You also want to look at maybe getting a hat and some sunglasses,
Okay.
maybe some sunscreen also while you're out on the water.
All right. I kind of like this one. What would this do?
That's a great choice. The Cabela's guide wear, like what we were discussing, it's lightweight. You have long sleeves, so you're protected from the sun. If that gets wet, it'll dry very quickly. So that's a good choice.
I think I'll take this one with me.
Great.
I feel so much more prepared now for my trip than I did walking in here. Thank you so much for all your help.
Thanks for coming in. If there's anything else we can do, please let us know.
You will definitely be seeing me again.
Thank you.
I'm coming for you, fish.